Hey there guys, it's Tina and I'm back. And I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe. If you're also back, welcome back to the I'm Back crew. How's it going? How's your mom? Say hi for me. But if you're new and maybe you like what you see, please consider subscribing because we have tons of fun here on this channel talking about makeup and all things beauty. And today we're doing just that because I have a fun video in store. We are trying out the new Danessa Myricks. Let me make sure I get this name right. Lightwork Volume 4 I Am Palette. Boom, bam, in your face. This is the newest launch from Danessa Myricks. It's a beautiful palette full of multi-chromes. It's a pricey one, so I wanted to go ahead and try it out for you guys, right? We're gonna give you all the details. This video is jam-packed, full of information, so I will be sure to leave timestamps and chapter markers in this video so you can navigate it however you wish, because we're gonna show you the palette up close and personal. I'm gonna give you all the details about the palette. We're gonna talk about the textures, the finishes, all the shades. We're gonna show you swatches as well as do a demonstration creating this fun look here. I'm going to give you my final thoughts, and in the middle I also give you some information on the Sephora Beauty Insider program because I was lucky enough to get $100 off this palette, and I'll tell you how I did that and how you can probably do that for yourself. So a lot is going on in this video, but we're gonna showcase this palette. This is the star of the show. So without much further ado, if you want to hear all about this palette, see it up close and personal, see a demonstration, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So this is the Danessa Myricks BeautyLightwork Volume 5 I Am palette. It says illuminating eye and face pigments, okay? So let me read the details of this palette while you see the palette up close and personal. So again, this palette retails for $125. There are 18 shades included. 10 of the shades are 0.035 ounce each or 1 gram, and 8 of the shades are 1.5 grams or 0.038 ounce each. Total weight 18.8 grams or 0.66 ounce, and there is an intended usage life of 12 months. And this palette was designed in the USA but made in China. What I find interesting is on the back of this palette it says warning for external use only, avoid direct contact with eyes. So now I'm like, hold up, what? Like, it's a face and eye palette, so what do you mean avoid direct contact with eyes? Like, don't get it in my actual eyes? Maybe that's what you mean. I'ma run with it, all right? I'm jumping over to the Danessa Myricks website, which I feel like will have the better details about the palette. So it says, this is an 18 shade eye and face pigment palette that contains 7 brilliant finishes in easy to use color shifting combinations. Light catching finishes inspired by the beautiful light in us all. Delivers unparalleled ease of use with intuitively curated color combinations and dynamic finishes, plus reality shifting affirmations. Play with 7 hyper dazzling finishes: heavenly halos, fusion flakes, silk press shifters, whipped powder shifters, molten metals, suede shimmers, and cushion chromes. Explore ethereal toppers, bold shifters, and grounding shimmers by traveling vertically or across the rows, revealing the diverse stories of you. Swipe it, say it, believe it. Now don't come for me, okay, because I know you guys love to tussle, but I was kind of holding in a laugh, I'm not gonna lie, when Danessa was talking about this palette on her Instagram page, because it's a little woo for me. It's a little woo, and it's fine. It's fine, like, you know, have your beliefs, but I'm really not the manifestation girly, okay? I am not one with the universe. I am not out here looking at astrological signs and worrying about if Mercury is in retrograde or whatever. That's not my journey, but I mean, good for you if it is. So I'm gonna read this, okay? And I'm gonna try not to laugh. So it says, say I am and repeat the name of the shade while applying. I'm personally not gonna do that, you know, but do what you want to do. It's up to you. But how this palette is organized is in rows and columns, right? each row is supposed to be a specific kind of energy, right? So the top row is soft energy, and all these shades are on the softer, more illuminating or iridescent side, but they're not intense. So we have Resilient, which is described as a glacier blue to soft lilac. Radiant is a rosy apricot to chartreuse yellow. Centered is a champagne gold to soft peach. Protected is in opalescent pink to pastel blue. And Evolving is a mint green with gold reflex. The next row is Bold Energy, and this is gonna be intense shades. And these are split into duos, which I am so happy about, because now instead of just 4 large shades, we have 8. So they're each duos. So we have Strong, which is a cerulean blue to violet blue. Brave is a seafoam green to baby pink. Fierce is a copper red to electric green. Fearless is a fluorescent peach to gold green. Loved is a flamingo pink to golden sage. Healed is a purple orchid to smoky green. Inspiring is a lilac gunmetal to mystical gray. And Abundant is an emerald green to deep violet. Stunning shades. These are so pretty. I absolutely love them, and I think the shade descriptions are pretty spot on with these. Then we have the Grounding Energy row. So we have Invincible, which is a smoky silver with platinum reflex. Unstoppable is a terracotta red with multi-tonal shimmer. Powerful is a deep cherry to bronze orange. Unbreakable is a dark raspberry with pink shimmer. And Enough is a fern green with olive green shimmer. And again, stunning shades. These shades are more on the duochrome side. They're not as multi-dimensional as the other shades in the other 2 rows. Now, as you can tell, there are no mattes in this palette, which is fine by me. So you're going to need to pull in mattes from another palette in your collection, and that's fine by me. I love having an accent palette which I can pull beautiful duochromes, multi-chromes, shimmers from, and just ground it with a go-to palette in my collection. Now let's talk about the finishes really quickly, because there's 7 in this palette, and I wanted to just talk through how the textures feel, and then we'll jump into the eye look, of course. So in the first row, Soft Energy, we have 4 Heavenly Halos, and then the center shade, which is centered, ooh, child. The centered shade is a Fusion Flake. Now, the Heavenly Halos are really like sheer topper shades. They're iridescent, they're beautiful, they're multi-chromes, they're stunning, okay? The Fusion Flake is just a little bit flakier. It has chunkier particles to it, so it's not as smooth as the Heavenly Halos, but it actually smooths out really well in the swatches. It just looks a little bit more sparkly, and my recommendation for applying that shade would be to use a finger so you can get a smooth layer on, or use a damp brush. If you use this with a dry brush, it's going to be a little bit more flaky, right? So you're not gonna necessarily get the best application with that. All right, in the second row, we have Silk Press Shifters and Whipped Powder Shifters. So they alternate a little bit. And honestly, I feel like these 2 textures are so similar that we probably didn't need to differentiate them. They're beautiful metallic shades. They're sparkly, they're stunning. The Silk Press Shifters are maybe just a little smoother. They feel almost a little more finely milled, so they give a smoother, almost baked finish, but they're not baked eyeshadows. They just give that silkier texture. And then the Whipped Powder Shifters are more like your typical metallic eyeshadow. They're more powdery, but they have a lot of punch and pigment to them. They don't feel as smooth as, say, a multi-chrome would, like a Cleona multi-chrome that has that kind of silky texture. But they apply essentially the same way, and you can use a finger or a brush with these. I don't see them being very troublesome to apply. They give great opacity, one swipe. They're really gorgeous. All right, in the bottom row, we have Molten Metals, Suede Shimmers, and then a Cushion Chrome. Now the Cushion Chrome, let's talk about that first. It's a really wet feeling shadow. It really feels like a velvety cream shadow that's really a powder, right? So it has that creamy, silky texture to it, but it's not a cream at the same time. It's just really smooth and high impact. So I love that shade. That shade is awesome. Now the Molten Metal, which is a silver shade, looks like a molten metal, but you have to kind of press to smooth it out, and it has micro shimmer to it as well. It's really beautiful, but I don't think it's that much different from the other shades. But it does look like a molten metal on your eyes, which is what I think she was trying to say. It's probably best applied with a finger, but I don't see it being an issue with a brush because it has that nice silky texture to it as well. And then the Suede Shimmers, these have micro fine glitter to them. They're still smooth metallic eyeshadows or frosty eyeshadows, but there is that micro fine shimmer. So these are the ones that you're gonna see more of that glitter particle or that glitter effect, but it's not chunky glitter. So don't be afraid of that, but it's just gonna have a little bit more of a glitter effect to it, if you will. But again, really smooth, apply really well. All of these shades to me just apply really well in the swatches. Now let me tell you how much of a hater I was, all right? I was not intending on getting this palette at all. Because I'm like, hold up, it's $125. I am not really about that life, especially since I have her older palette. Actually, let me grab that. Here it is. So this is the Lightwork Volume 4. So this is the one from last year. Beautiful packaging, like the whole 9 yards. And this was also $125. Now, this one has a similar layout, but less shades. This one had 10 multi-chrome shades, and then 4 shades in the middle in larger pans that were water activated. Well, 2 are water activated, these 2 on the end, and then the center shades were flaky shades, and I didn't fall in love with those shades. So it's really the 10 shades in the palette that were really the selling point for me. And I ended up using this palette less than I would have expected, especially given that it's $125. So I didn't get my money's worth, right? So when I saw this, I was like, all right, the same thing's gonna happen. I'm not gonna get my money's worth out of this palette. Like, ho hum, I'm not getting it, right? But then I ended up getting a Sephora $100, you know, the point perk. So if you shop at Sephora, and I mean at all, even if it's once every year or every 2 years, or once a week like some of us do. I'm not saying I do that, but I'm just saying if you shop at Sephora at all, make sure you sign up for their Beauty Insider program. It's not a credit card or anything, right? It's a rewards program. So you give them your name, your address, your email address, and your phone number, and you're now in their system. So each time you make a purchase and you give them your phone number or your email address, it will stack the points towards your account. So each of your purchases counts towards points. And the more points you accumulate, you move up along their tier program, right? So the more money you spend, the higher level you'll get to. So I am a VIB Rouge, I know, but if you're a VIB Rouge, you get additional perks because now each dollar that you spend at Sephora, you end up getting like 1.5 times the dollar spent, right? So if you spend $100, you get 150 points, right? And you keep stacking those points. Now, if you have their credit card, which I do, okay, you get additional perks. So I think the credit card is now 2 times your dollar amount spent. So $100 is gonna give you 200 points. And the Sephora Reward program is not the best. It's not the best at all. But what they do have, which you can take advantage of, instead of spending like 100 points here or 500 points here, stack your points until you get to 2,500. Now it's gonna take some of us longer than it is others. However, I have the credit card and I buy a ridiculous amount of makeup. So let's just say I stacked up my points and there was an error in their system, you know, the credit card reward system, where they hadn't been giving us the 2 times points or something like that. So they sent out an email. They're like, hey, sorry about that. We're adjusting your reward points, right? And I'm like, all right. Next thing I know, I have 7,000 points. Excuse me, 7,000 points? Stop it, okay? So therefore, guess what? I was eligible for their $100 reward card, which, okay, the rewards, I don't know why I'm giving you the full rundown of Sephora, but I need y'all to know, okay? Because I need y'all to be on board with this, all right? So every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So set your alarms, okay? Or just have that in your mind. 12 p.m. Eastern, right? Once you go on the app or you go on the website and you go under the rewards, you can select your rewards. Under the 2,500 point section, so they have 100 points, 200 points, 500, and so on, right? At the 2,500 point level, there is a $100 gift card that you can get, right? And these sell out fast, so you wanna go ahead, add to the bag, check out, and go, okay? You don't have to make an actual purchase, right? So you don't have to add anything else to your bag. You're just gonna check out with your points, right? $0, and that $100 gift card reward gets emailed to your account, and then you can use it on a future purchase. All that to say, oh my God, I went in on a Tuesday, right? And I was worried because it was after 12 p.m. It's like you have to be there at 12 p.m. to really get one of them. It was like 10 after, but I lucked out, added it to my cart, checked out, got it, boom. I was like, okay, let's talk about it. I'm gonna go ahead and just spend that $100 reward on the palette because it's $125. So I ended up just paying the $25 and the tax or whatever for it, which, I mean, come on, girl math, right? I ended up only spending $25, which pretty much means I got this for free, right? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking in my head. Not worried about all the money I had to spend to actually get the rewards points. Either way, I got this for free. No, I didn't. I spent my points on this and then the $25 plus tax. So like $28-ish, all right, for this palette. And I am so excited. I am so happy with this. And on Thursday, I also went in and got another $100 reward, all right? Now, here's the thing about the rewards. You can't combine it with a coupon code or another discount code. It's almost like its own code to itself, and you can only use one code per purchase. So that $100 point perk, I can't use that during the VIB sale, like the Sephora, Beauty Insider sale. I can't get the 20% discount and then use the $100 to pay for it. It won't work that way, okay? I have to use it on a non-sale purchase. So I figured, all right, I'm not gonna wait for the sale. I'm just gonna grab the palette. All right, did I give you enough background? I hope I did. But if you have the points, stack them. Don't use your 500 points for $10 off, okay? That's not worth it. Stack them, stack it, unless you really don't purchase from Sephora that much and you want to get $10 off, that's on you. But if you can, stack it, get the $100 reward because that's the best reward they have. They have some nice little gifts too, like the minis. Those are okay. They're okay. I'm not gonna pretend they aren't okay, but the $100 point perk got me this palette. All right, did I give you enough of a background of why I purchased this? Because that $100 was really hitting me hard. Okay, so I felt better about purchasing the palette because even if I didn't like it, I only really spent cash-wise like $28. All right, all that to say, I got the palette and I'm so glad I did. Oh my God, this palette is so gorgeous, it's so stunning. First of all, look at the packaging. It's so stunning. It is, I wouldn't say it's a marble. It's like a watercolor effect, right? But it looks like a marble at the same time. Colorful, beautiful, stunning. It goes from the box to the palette. And on the front of the palette, there's this plate instead of it just being the logo from last year. This palette was beautiful in and of itself last year. So I'm not knocking this palette, but this one is stunning too. Now it doesn't have the reflective metallic detail of this one, like that foiled effect. It's flat. It's kind of a flat color, but it's fine. It's cute. Ingredients and all that are on the back of the palette. We're gonna see how some of these apply on the eyelids because that's what we're diving into right now. I feel like I spent this entire video so far just gushing about the palette and giving you the information, but that's what I wanted to do. I really wanted to talk about the palette, and that's exactly what I did. I gave you all the information about the palette, so now let's go ahead and jump into the demonstration and actually apply it to the eyes. But I must give you guys a little bit of an update. So you may notice things look a little bit different. That's because I'm filming this on another day. And you may be wondering, like, why are you filming this on another day, Tina? You were all prepped and ready to go. And the simple reason is the look that I created was a disaster. It was awful, and I've done a couple of looks since then, so this is gonna be my 4th look with this palette, and I've learned quite a few things. So I'm happy things went wrong, and I'm gonna, you know what, let me just show you what went wrong so you can see for yourself. Ooh, ooh. None of this is cute. This is uglier than I would like it to be. Come in. Yeah, it's much uglier than I would have liked. I'm just mixing everything on the eyelid, doing the most, and the most is not pretty. Yeah, it wasn't a good time at all. So now I'm back and I'm ready to do an actual look and demonstration that I think is gonna work better with this palette. And I will give you my final thoughts and like the lessons learned at the end of the video. So let's go ahead and do the look. Eyes prepped and primed, brows filled in. You know the drill, freshly washed face, all that. Let's go ahead and build a look, which will require that we pull in another palette. So for this, I'm going back to my Mirage palette from Alter Ego. This again is the dupe palette for the Empowered palette from Huda Beauty. In case you were curious, this is a nice, more affordable alternative. So that's the palette we're gonna use to build the base of this look. And that's one of the first things you're going to learn about this palette. And it depends on your preferences as well. For me, I need to pull in mattes from my collection, from another palette, because there are no mattes in this palette. All these shadows are special shades, they're shimmers. So you'll need to pull in mattes, again, from your own collection. I'm using a little bit of makeup tape just to get a crisp outline with the matte shade. So let's just jump right in. I'm gonna start out with this matte creamy orange shade, and I'm creating just a diffused look on that outer V and outer crease area. Now let's go into this deeper orange brown. I'm using the same brush, and I'm just going to build a little bit of color. The shade that I want to use in the palette is more on the warm side. So I want to create a warm base to start out with, so everything will coordinate together. And I think this palette is perfect for that because there are a lot of warmer shades in this palette. It's giving me the fall vibes. All right, let's grab the deepest shade in the palette. That one is Endless. That's the deepest powder shade in the palette, I should say, because there is a cream black and a cream wine shade, but we're not going into those. We're sticking to the powder shadows in this case. And I'm just using a smaller blending brush to create a little bit of depth and dimension. Now, I went way too far up out here with the dark shades, so I'm gonna have to pull in the shade Clay, which is the lighter peach shade, and do our highlight now so I can blend that dark color down a bit. It just got away from me. I don't know what was happening in my mind, but that's a great way to save a color. When it gets too high, go in with a lighter shade, like a skin tone shade, to blend it back, and it will act as an eraser shade. All right, now let's go into the palette. So the shade I want to use is Fierce. You see how bold that shade is? It's like a fiery, coppery red shade. It's very intense. It reflects copper and gold and a little bit of green, which I think is perfect for a fall look. And since I already have it on my finger, let me go ahead and apply it to the center of the lid. And this shade is intense, so I'm just gonna pick it up and press it onto the lid. Now, the other lesson I learned from this palette is that fingers or brushes work equally as well. Even though you may think you need to apply these shades with a finger, I found using a brush actually works well. And I'll demonstrate that by picking the shadow up on a Builder 3 brush from Sonia G. This shade is a little bit flakier, so you might see little flecks kind of flaking off, like literally little flakes dusting off on my eyelids. So you want to press to apply these shadows. You don't want to swipe too much initially. Press and then you can swipe to blend. but as you can see, it will apply nicely with a brush, again, using that press-in motion. And that's not usually how much pressure I would apply with a normal shimmer shade. This is just what you have to do with these flakier shades. These textures from Danessa Myricks, they take a little bit of getting used to, but you can share out the intensity or you can build it up depending on the amount of pressure you apply and then how many layers you go in with. So I've gone back in with a couple of layers of this shade and I'm just sweeping back and forth but pressing as I go. And it's gonna smooth that shade out a bit. And I will say these shades build up really easily. Again, just using pressing motions. Just make sure you press and swipe. And they apply well. A shader brush is going to work best to apply them. But, I mean, come on. You can also use your finger and you can go back in with your finger just to blend a little bit. The warmth in your finger will make everything look a little bit more seamless and a little bit smoother and not as sparkly. But you see the shades apply well, but this shade in particular takes over, which is why I wanted to use this shade in the look, because I almost feel like this shade is the trickiest to work with. Now I'm gonna go in with the Cushion Chrome, which is powerful, this shade. It's a weird shade because it looks almost like a gunmetal purple on camera, but in the pan, it's like a wine shade. It's a little bit more on the dirty purple, like dirty burgundy side. And I'm just gonna pop that on the outer V next to this shade here, which it won't do too much, but I wanted to see how that shade would work to deepen up the crease, and it really doesn't. If you wanted a more tame version of this copper shade that we have on the lid, I would say Powerful would be the way to go. And the shades in the bottom row are a little bit more like an actual shimmer shade versus the shades in the center, which are a little bit more potent, a little bit more flaky, and a little bit more intense. That's fine. You know what I want to pull in? I'm going to pull in a shade that I created that works well with dark looks. This is from my Hummingbird palette with Odin's Eye. This palette is no longer available. It's the shade Star Apple. It's just a dark purple. Instead of using a black, I like to use a dark red or a dark purple or a dark blue in colorful looks because it will give a little something something to darken up the look, but it won't overwhelm it like a black will. And this purple shade is just going to vibe well with the red and copper that we have on the lid, and it will work a little better than say a brown or a black would. Even though we had the darker shade down from the Alter Ego palette, I feel like this dark purple is just needed to ground the look a little bit more. Now let's go in with another shade from the palette. And this is something else that I learned. You want to be careful with how many shades you layer and add to a look because it can get from 0 to 100 real quick. So I'm gonna go back to the duo that we used with Fairs, and I'm gonna grab the other shade next to it, which is Fearless, right? And this one, still flaky, but it is a little bit more subdued. It is still a coppery shade, right? You see how fiery it is, but it's a little bit more on the iridescent side. So it will bring a little bit more light to the eye, you know, as you do. So it will intensify that inner tear duct. So I'm just gonna pop that on the inner tear duct with a brush. This is a Sigma E54 brush, and I'm just gonna blend around the edges. You see how easy that shade was to apply? It really sticks to the lids, and I feel like there's a lot of dimethicone in this formula. I may be wrong, but I feel like there's almost like a creamy texture, a moist texture to these shadows. They're not really powdery and loose. You know what else I want to go in with, which I'm a little bit nervous about, but should we try it anyway? The shade Protected. No, that's a little bit too purple. No. Learn your lesson, Tina. Let's do the shade Radiant from the top row. This one is a Heavenly Halo, and it's gonna be more on the sheer side. Again, more iridescent. Oh, wow. Okay. That is stunning. Great job. Good selection. These shades, oh, working well together because they all have that same little multi-chrome reflect to them, that orangey, peachy, fiery copper vibe. So let me remove the tape and do my mascara, lashes, face makeup, and I'll be right back. All right, we are back. The lashes are on, eyes are done, but we're not quite done with the look yet because this is an eye and face palette, right? So technically you can use any of these shades on the face as well as the eyes. And I'll be honest with you, okay? I do not want to put any of these on my face because they're a little bit intense, all right? But we're gonna do it for science. So the shades I would say are best for use on the actual face as like a highlighter would be the shades in the top row, because these are, again, the more sheer shades. They're gonna give you less punch, less impact. Definitely not the third row, and not so much the center row either. So we're gonna pick one of these shades. I think I need something that's a little bit peachy, a little bit orangey. Should we try to use Radiant again? The one we used on the inner tear duct? Let's try it. I'm a little bit nervous, not gonna lie. Let's use a Sigma F03 brush. This is the high cheekbone highlighter brush. All right, I'm gonna grab Radiant. Let's see how lightly I can pick that up. I am not a fan of, come in. I am not a fan of glittery highlighters, so for me, this is not, like I'm regretting everything right now. These would not be my go-to kind of shades for a highlighter because you can actually see the particles. I mean, it's not too bad. It's not too, yes it is. It is, you can see it, right? I'm hoping, let me see if I can turn down the light just a bit. Can you see it now? Like the actual, no, you can't see nothing. It ain't showing. The point is, all right, this is definitely a more sparkly highlighter than I'm comfortable with. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. I can't do it. And none of these shades are smooth and like really silky enough to give you a very light, natural looking highlighter that melts with the skin. This is definitely gonna be more sparkly, and that was the part I was dreading because I'm sure you guys were like, put it on your face, and I'm like, I don't want it on my face. I do not want it on my face. Anyway, here is the final look. Let me show you what that looks like before we talk about my final thoughts. The eyeshadow turned out so well. Compared to my last couple of experiences with it, this is the best it's looked so far. And this was what I envisioned when I first thought about using the Fierce shade, right? This is what I was thinking in my head. It didn't quite translate initially, but now I definitely got it. And don't even start with my top, right? Oh my God. Don't even. It's a faux leather bustier from, where'd I get this from? I don't even know. I just know it's cute. It's ages and ages old, okay? So I definitely won't be able to find it. But I was like, oh, I'm doing fall. It's a vibe, right? Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and give you my final thoughts, lessons learned, and an overall review of this palette. So first off, the price point. This is $125. $125. This time around though, you're getting 18 shades as opposed to the 14 from last year's palette. So you're getting more variety here, more shades to choose from. And the shades are a decent size. We have 10 shades that are 0.035 ounces, which is the size of a small eyeshadow on the market. And I'm thinking because of the formulation, it might be a lighter formula. So the weight might not necessarily match up to the volume, but you see the small eyeshadow pans, they're not tiny, they're like average size, right? And then we have 8 shades, these center shades that are a little bit larger at 0.038 ounces. And I think that's a decent amount of product for the price point. And for 18 shades, if we divide it equally, each of the shades are roughly $6.90 something cents. Round it up to $7. Let's just make it a clean $7 per shade, which is actually a good value considering other multi-chromes on the market, or you know, these special duochrome shades, these sparkly shades. These tend to run in the 10, 12, 15, sometimes $20 range. So I think for each of these shades to kind of work out to $7 a piece, that's not a bad buy. Now, the question is, are you going to spend $125 on this palette? That's up to you, because I can never in my right mind try to justify a $125 palette. It's eyeshadow. We have bills to pay. We have groceries to buy. Let's calm down with these prices, right? But if you know you're gonna get a lot of use out of this palette is gonna be special in your collection, you've never tried multi-chromes and you want like a huge selection of them, I mean, it might be worth it for you to pick up. In my case, girl math, I spent $25 on this, which was really like $30, but still it's like free for me because of my rewards points. So the price didn't really hit me as hard. And the Sephora sale is coming up, so you can get 20% off if you're VIB Rouge. So that knocks it down to a clean $100, which is still pricey, right? But it's a little bit more digestible. And again, comparing it to other multi-chromes on the market and similar formulations, I would say it's a decent value for that price point at $100. $125 is a little bit harder to swallow, but it is what it is. You're either gonna buy it or you're not. As far as the packaging goes, I think it's beautiful. I think it's really well done. The only thing I wish is that this was more foiled, you know? So it would shimmer like the previous palette. Where's my previous palette, you know? You see how pretty that is? I think this is still pretty. I just wanted it to glow a little bit. But packaging, really sturdy cardboard. It has the metal plate. This is metal on the front. All the details on the back. The full-size mirror, we have the little insert with the texture descriptions, we have all the names in the palette. The layout I think is well done. Overall I think it's pretty. It's not luxurious per se, but it's pretty packaging. As far as purchasing this palette, it's actually available at quite a few retailers that stock Danessa Myricks beauty products, including Sephora. Like I said, wait for that Sephora sale so you can get a discount. It's also available on the Danessa Myricks website, which I think if you sign up for their mailing list, you can get a discount as well. You have it on Beautylish and Beauty Bay, as well as Camera Ready Cosmetics. So you can shop around to see where you can get the best bang for your buck, free shipping, a discount, you know the works. So again, wait for the Sephora sale. That's all I'm saying, and see if you can get that 20% off. Now, let's talk about the product and the performance, which is where we really need to dive in, all right? So, like I mentioned when I gave you all the information about the palette, there are 7 different textures in this palette. We have Fusion Flakes, Heavenly Halo, Silk Press Shifters, Whipped Powder Shifters, Suede Shimmers, Cushion Chromes, and Molten Metals. And here's the thing, I really don't think there are 7 unique textures in this palette. If anything, there's probably, let's see, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. So in the top row, we have more sheer shades. They're more on the iridescent side, but they're still pretty impactful. You can use them on the face, these top shades. You can use them on the face, on the inner tear duct, on the center of the lid as a halo effect. You can apply it all over the lid because, like I said, they pack a punch. There's some pigmentation to these, so I don't think they're lightly pigmented, but these are more versatile as far as using them on the face and the eyes. And then the centered shade, which is actually in the center, is a Fusion Flake, which is something that is unique to Danessa Myricks. I don't know if you've ever tried any of her flaky eyeshadows or flaky pigments. They have this very special texture that comes off in flakes, and you have to press them to smooth them out. And I haven't had the best experience with those. They give a very unique look to the skin, to the eyes. They're very beautiful, right? But it's very unique to Danessa. I never enjoyed those shades, but in this palette, the formula somehow works because this shade smooths out really easily with a brush or with your finger, which is where the tricky texture comes in. It's like, how do I lay this down? This shade actually works well. So even though it's a flaky shade, I think it's the best performing one I've tried from her so far. Then in the second row, we have the Whip Powder Shifters and the Silk Press Shifters. I don't think there's much difference between those two formulations. I feel like they're the same, okay? They are very pigmented, very bold, very moist, dimethicone rich eyeshadows. They're intense, okay? They're bolder than the top shades. They pack a little bit more punch for sure. And I'm looking through the ingredients, and the second ingredient in the majority of the shades is phenyl trimethicone, which is a silicone ingredient. It says it's a silicone that functions as a hydration, sealing, occlusive, and conditioning agent, contributing to a product's silky texture and feel on the skin. And that's exactly what I get from these shadows. They have this almost moist feel to them. They feel almost damp, and it's very silky. It feels like a cream eyeshadow, but they're not cream eyeshadows. And you get that feeling on your fingers when you apply it to your lids. So it's very comfortable, feels very cushiony, feels very smooth. And they apply well. They apply almost like a cream eyeshadow in that intensity and in that lay down. And what I can say is that these shades apply well with a brush or a finger, which is something that we can encounter with some of these special shades, that you need to apply them with your finger, so your finger will warm up the formula and will allow for them to really adhere to the lids, stick down, and smooth out. I didn't find that to be the case with these. I feel like you can use them with a finger or a brush and they apply equally well, and I don't have to dampen my brush. I used a natural hair brush as well as synthetic bristles, and both types of bristles work to pick up the shade, which again can be a little bit tricky when it comes to these really flaky or dimethicone rich formulas. You can create like a film on the top so they don't pick up. These pick up easily on a brush, easily on your finger. There's no hard pan created, and I mean, they apply beautifully and they blend out well, and there's minimal fallout, which I was very surprised by. Again, the formula looks a little bit glittery and flaky and there's a lot of sparkle to them, but no, very minimal fallout from them. But I do recommend applying your face makeup after so you can clean away any errant sparkle on your face. You don't want shimmer all over your face, you know? But I mean, they apply so well. Then we get to the bottom row where we have Suede Shimmers and a Molten Metal as well as a Cushion Chrome. For the most part, the Suede Shimmers perform like any other shimmer eyeshadow. I feel like they're not as moist as the other shades, like the center shades, but they still have that dimethicone feel to them where they're very silky. And then the shade that's being described as a Cushion Chrome, I don't see any cushion or any chrominess from it, right? It's a little bit more moist than the other shades, like the Suede Shimmers. But to me, these shades all have like a little bit of micro shimmer to them, micro glitter. And they apply well, very pigmented, very beautiful. And then the other special texture is the Molten Metal. This one reminds me of the flaky, the cushion, what is it called? Fusion Flake. It's flaky, it's metallic, it's beautiful. It's a foiled silver is what it really boils down to. That's where the Molten Metal probably comes from, but it's a foiled silver. But overall, I would say they're probably 3 or 4. That was a delivery, everything's fine, we're safe. But as I was saying, even though this palette touts 7 different textures and 7 different finishes, I feel like there's maybe 3 or 4 different textures that you're going to encounter. Right? The Molten Metal and the Fusion Flake, kind of the same texture going on. The center shades are a little bit more punchy, a little bit more moist, right? The bottom shades here, I feel like all of these are similar and they apply like a regular shimmer eyeshadow. And then the top shades are more on the sheer side. Those are probably the major differences, but texture-wise, I feel like you know, it's pretty much the same jazz, and they all, again, apply and build beautifully. And I had a chance to try out most of the shades in this palette. And with that being said, I'm going to warn you because this is a lesson learned. Do not try to apply too many of these shades in an eye look. I learned the hard way that doing too much is ugly. It turns out into a muddy mess because each of these shades almost stand alone, and you want to use them maybe one or two at a time. You probably want to have a center lid shade and then an inner tear duct highlight. I know I ended up using like 3 shades from the shimmers, and those coordinated well, and I think the layout of the palette will help you select the shades that go together, right? So the greens are on this side, they go together down this column. The blues on one side, and then the center shades you can kind of mix and match because they have that copper, pinky, purple, peachy vibe going to them. And what I will say is, if you're ever in doubt as to what these shades are gonna look like because they don't look the same in the pan as they do on your lids, is swatch them out. Just grab them on your finger so you can see the shifts before you apply them, because what you see is not necessarily what you're going to get. And I learned that the hard way because like this shade here, right? It looks like it's going to be kind of a pinky shade, but then you swatch it and you see the purple and the blue and you're like, oh yeah, I don't want that shade, because I was about to use it in this look and I'm like, oh no, no, no. And then like this Brave shade, again, it's going to look a little bit different in the pan than it does on your lids. So if you're in doubt, swatch them out, just see where the shifts are so you can match the shifts according to the shades. But just don't be like me and try to mix everything together, because it's not gonna work out, right? And I learned that the hard way. So it may take a little bit of getting used to. So just learn from me, use 1 or 2 shades, maybe 3 maximum. These top shades are probably your safest bet because they're a little bit more, you know, iridescent, a little bit lighter. And then the bottom shades are nice grounding shades. These center shades is where you're gonna run into issues, but the pairings of each of them, they work well together, right? So overall, I do enjoy this palette. Now, did it fail me a couple of times? Yes. So might there be a learning curve? Sure. Do you have to pull in other eyeshadows in your collection to get like a cohesive look? Yes. To me, I wouldn't do a full shimmer look. That's just not my style. I want a matte shadow to darken up my outer V. I want a matte in my crease and then a matte brow bone shade and a highlight. But lid shade, inner tear duct, give me the sparkle, give me the shimmer. But that's just my style. Danessa Myricks has done looks on her Instagram page with just straight shimmer. But what I noticed is that she uses 1 shade. She's like a one and done for all those looks, which is another way you can tackle it, right? Use just 1 shade, which is what you're going to find again from this palette. Using 1 shade, up to 3 is your safest bet. Don't try to do too much. And what else did I learn? So finger application works, brush application works. You don't have to dampen your brush. Do your face makeup last so you can get rid of any fallout, which isn't a lot, okay, from my experience. Don't use too many shades together, and swatch them out so you can see the nuances before you apply them, so you can be sure like what you're gonna get, like what colors you're gonna see. Overall, I like the palette. I'm happy I picked it up. I'm happy I got the $100 off because that made it, again, an easier pill to swallow. But I'm happy. I'm happy with it. I think I'm gonna get more use out of it than the Lightwork 4, which I haven't really used a lot, even though like the shades are gorgeous. These are a little bit more on the true multi-chrome side. These were just smooth, feeling almost baked, versus these that feel very creamy, very moist. Oh, also use a primer so you can help prevent creasing. And you can give the eyeshadow something to stick to. But overall, I think I'm gonna get a lot of use out of this palette. I think they're beautiful shades in here, and it's motivating me also to pull out Lightwork 4 and get more use out of that as well. So here you have it. Hopefully this review was helpful in you deciding whether or not you're gonna grab this palette. If you're into special shades, I think this is a fun palette for you. If you're not afraid of bold shadows, this is a great palette for you as well. If you're tiptoeing into things and you're a little bit apprehensive, maybe don't spend $125 on a palette. But if you truly are adventurous and you want to dive more into special shades, even if you're still a beginner, that's a good palette, because again, you're getting 18 shades for the price, so you get to try out a variety of shades and, you know, play with them, have fun, incorporate them into your looks. Start out with one shade and go from there. But I'm happy with the palette, but I don't think it's for everyone, just based on the price point and based on the color scheme and the textures. But I'm enjoying it, and I hope you got enough information from this video, because I gave you a lot. I spoke a lot, and as I mentioned and stressed, sign up for the Beauty Insider at Sephora so you can get a discount off of some of these products, because child, it gets pricey fast. And do you love my nails? Oh my god. Right? It's like the vibe. I am fully embracing fall. It's cooler here in Florida, even though it's not like really cool, but it's a little bit cooler and I'm embracing it. So there you have it, guys. I will leave links down below on where you can pick this palette up. I already mentioned all the retailers that have it online for purchase. I will leave the links down below. Those links will be affiliate links, which means I will get a small sales commission if you make a purchase through those links. It's a great way to show your support for the channel, because it gives me a kickback and I can put it right back into the content. You see, offset some of my costs. So thank you so much for using my links if you do use them. And you know, it's a little heads up that if you're shopping online, please consider using my links. It doesn't change the sale price, it just gives me a kickback. I also have super thanks and channel memberships, which operate as a tip jar. Again, to put right back into the content. I will also leave links to my Instagram and Twitter where you can follow me along. And until my next video, which will be very soon, I'll talk to you. Bye, guys.